and agrochemicals in India, which present immense growth opportunities. What are these opportunities? And whether Karnataka's presence is highlighted among the value chain of the chemicals and the petrochemicals industry, and how these things will unfold in the future. That probably and more are going to be discussed on the panel and throughout the session. I have great pleasure in inviting one after the other all the esteemed speakers. First and foremost, Mr. T.R. Parasuraman, Deputy Managing Director, Toyota Industries Engine India Private Limited. Mr. Parasuraman, please. May I also invite Mr. Jalaj Dani, President, Chemicals, HR and Supply Chain, Asian Paints Limited. Mr. Vishal S., Chief Executive Officer, Supreme Plasticizers. Mr. Subhash Chand, owner, Sankhya Industries. Mr. G.S. Ravi, Chief Executive Officer of Chemizol Additives Private Limited. Mr. R. Krishna, Managing Partner, Vasu Agarbattis. Mr. Rajat Kedia, Director, Manju Shri Technopack Limited. Dr. Anantaraman Dhanabalan, Chief Scientist, Corporate Programs, Nano and Adaptive Materials SA, BIC. May we also have you on stage. It's a pleasure to be invited to host this special session on plastics and chemicals, and now would like to invite Mr. Parasuraman to make the opening remarks.
Good afternoon. Namaskara. Chennagidira. So thank you very much. And I know that it's going to be a very, very tough session immediately after lunch. But we will try to make it more interesting and ensure you don't go to sleep. So first of all, I deem it a great pleasure and privilege that I've been entrusted with this pleasant task of chairing this very, very important session on plastics and chemicals, as mentioned earlier, which is going to be the key driver for Indian economy, especially in the years to come, with the kind of growth that we expect in agri and automobiles and infrastructure. So we have today wonderful panelists to share their thoughts on these related subjects. So we have Mr. Vishal, Chief Executive, Supreme Plasticizers, Mr. Subhash Chand, owner, Sankhya Industries, Mr. G.S. Ravi, Chief Executive Officer, Chemizol Additives, Mr. Krishna, Managing Partner, Vasu Agarbattis, Mr. Raja Ketia, Director, Manjushri Technopack, Dr. Anantaraman Dhanabalan, the Chief Scientist. And we are going to have the keynote address by Mr. Jalaj Dani, is the President, Chemicals, HR and Supply Chain of Asia Paints. So we have a lot of interesting speakers. Before that, I thought I'll just touch upon the current challenges and where do we stand. So starting with plastics. Plastics, our per capita consumption in India is still very, very small. We are close to 11 kg, whereas the global average is 28, and some countries like Australia, Japan, United States, they have already crossed 100. So huge potential that exists. And domestic consumption of plastics is 20 million tons, which is going to happen by 2020, which is a big number. And currently exports stood at 15-16 at $7.7 billion. This is also a substantial number. And this is going to create 4 million jobs with 2,000 exporters and 30,000 processing units. And interestingly, 85 to 90% of all these companies are small and medium scale companies. And this industry produces a wide range of raw materials, plastic molded extruded parts, polyester fibers, soft luggage items, writing instruments, PVC, consumer goods, sanitary fittings, electrical accessories, tarpaulin, fishing nets, etc. Growth drivers of this industry. Interestingly, India is the fastest growing GDP in the world, and we are growing between 7 to 8%. And growth of auto sector itself is phenomenal. In fact, today the auto market is 3.2 million cars. We targeted 4 plus million this year, but due to some challenges, we are just surviving at 3.2. I always keep telling even every Indian can buy a car. The day may not be very far. Our population, 1,300 million. Officially or unofficially, I don't know what is correct, but 1,300 million is our market size. So which means we can grow close to 600 times on a very, very optimistic note. Even this market grows 10 times, I think it's a very, very big number. And this is going to create more job opportunities. More than 100 million labor force is going to join. And 140 million will move from villages to the urban areas. So this urbanization will also propel growth. And coming to the chemical industries is a very, very important industry that support many subsectors like automobiles, healthcare, pharmaceuticals, education, IT, packaging, construction, and consumer appliances. The challenge is still R&D is at a low level, and with more R&D, this will propel growth and competitiveness of Indian market. And Indian scenario, we are the 7th largest producer in the world in terms of chemicals, 3rd in Asia, and market size is very huge, $140 billion. And out of which $70 billion is by special chemicals. And we are the 4th largest producer of agrochemicals, out of which 50% is exported. And key enabling industry providing support to agriculture, construction and leather, etc. And India accounts for 15% of world's production of dyestuff, which is very significant. And this industry itself is growing between 10 to 15% year on year. So coming to the growth drivers, we have a huge population and the youth population is very high. So we're going to reap dividends of demography. And Asia is likely to become the global hub, and per capita consumption is significantly going to rise with the rise in GDP and purchasing power. And especially the special chemicals and the knowledge chemicals is going to rule the world. That's a big market. And we have strengths of global cost competitiveness in terms of competitive labor and intellectual capital and availability of skilled manpower. And especially Karnataka, we have a very significant advantage in terms of many number of companies, more than 500 companies. And Mangalore Chemicals is serving as the epicenter of chemical and petrochemical industries. And the plant infrastructure and MSEZ for supporting industries in terms of water, power, dedicated pipeline, road connectivity to port, availability of bulk time form, and warehousing facilities, centrally located utility services, integrated townships, and seamless connectivity to domestic markets through road and rail network. So finally, we have big challenges, and definitely this industry is a big industry contributing to 1.38% of the gross net value of the economy. And we have also got a lot of government support in terms of R&D and strong growth of polymers and agrochemicals in India, with 100% FDI is permitted, excepting for certain industries which are hazardous in nature. And especially the upcoming petrochemicals and petrochemicals investment region and plastic parks spanning around 250 kilometers is going to provide state-of-the-art infrastructure for chemicals and petrochemicals, which is very much on the anvil. Of course, the challenges, we have disposal, waste management, environmental pollution, recycling, efficiency, and associated emissions, strict environmental regulations, technological competitiveness with respect to other countries. And interestingly, 50% of the plastics is consumed for domestic consumable market, which is going to perish in less than 1 year, which means disposal of these plastics is a big challenge, leading to the depletion of natural resources in terms of water and in terms of soil pollution. And this means a lot to Mother Earth. So to address all these issues, we have eminent speakers. And to begin with, I have great pleasure in inviting Mr. Jalaj Dani to give the overview, to share with us the challenges that exist in this field. Thank you very much. I invite Mr. Jalaj Dani.